I haven't played Terraria in years, and today I will be surviving 100 days in Terraria Skyblock. There's no day counter because I timed it in hours, so this is technically 40 hours of Terraria, not technically 100 days, but whatever, it's fine. Also, I just finished Silksong, so that's why my character is Hornet. So let's do it. I forgot to record the first few days, but you can see all of my progress right here. A simple dirt and slime box. If you're wondering what's on the side of my house, it's my homemade slime catchers. Slimes are important in the first few days of Skyblock because you only start with a solidifier and an island of just dirt. No grass, just dirt. And the way you get a lot of things you normally couldn't, like grass seeds or ore or stone blocks, is going to be all through slimes. I then began work on a tunnel for when I need to go underground before spending the night farming zombies. I then luckily got a zombie arm, which is a good step up from my wooden sword. I then began my descent into the underground. I really wanted the merchant to move in, but the guy was occupying my only house. I then realized that slime walls are not valid walls for housing, so I had to replace them with wood. I figured I had enough wood that I might as well do the whole thing. I returned to the underground and built a new slime catcher. I then decided to convert my basement into a living space since I can't seem to get rid of the guide. While I was farming slimes, I got extremely lucky and got a slime staff. This will be very useful for farming. I then descended into the cavern layer and built a new catcher in hopes of finding stone blocks and some mimics. After farming some enemies for a bit, I finally had enough stone to make a furnace. Something interesting to note is that the slimes drop every single type of ore, not just world-specific ores, which doesn't seem like an issue. It actually seems pretty nice. However, having your ores spread out like this makes it difficult to gather enough of one specific ore to make, for example, an armor set. I then shoved all my metal into a chest before farming more enemies when this happened. So I farmed even more slimes as I waited for King Slime to spawn. Now I was very unprepared for this. I had almost zero armor, only one extra heart, and like the worst weapons I could have right now. Yeah, no surprise there. I still had not seen a single mimic, so I decided to head deeper into the world, hoping that the spawn chances will be higher. I still had no luck, so I decided to go even deeper. After farming for a while and getting no results, I decided it's time I'd upgrade my house a little bit. After getting fed up by being knocked off or falling through my platform stairs, I decided it was time to build a settlement in the cavern layer in hopes of getting the cavern pylon. After moving a couple of NPCs, I was finally able to get my pylon. For those who don't know, a pylon allows you to teleport to another pylon, so long as there are villagers around each one. I then built a new catcher, as this was going to be my farming spot for mimics. Unlike the normal game, in Skyblock, mimics can spawn pre-hard mode and contain loot that you would normally find in normal gold chests. I then was smart enough to place conveyor belts down. Yes, there are conveyor belt slimes, and that allowed the mimics to roll right into my catcher. I then built a small arena and went back to farming, because the only way you can get the Eye of Cthulhu or the King Slime to spawn is to wait for it to spawn naturally, which might take a while. When I got back home, I was confused why there was a hole in my base. Turns out I somehow accidentally threw a bomb, and I just didn't notice. I think this sums up just about how much farming I've done. After reaching the maximum number of hearts, I really didn't know what to do next, so I ended up beautifying my base. While in the middle of building, a thunderstorm struck, which is pretty important in Terraria Skyblock. When it's raining, you can throw out iron buckets into the rain and it'll collect water eventually. It only takes a few seconds. I then started work on creating a jungle biome. Why I did this above ground, I don't know, because all the good stuff you need is underground. I didn't know what to do next, since my next step really was just to fight the Eye of Cthulhu. But I got lucky, and now I can finally beat him and not have to wait for him anymore. As long as I beat him. So I grabbed some potions and waited for the fight to begin. This fight wasn't all that hard. Granted, I am playing in expert mode, not master mode, but something I had that I've never seen before was the roller skate mount. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but this mount might be one of the best in the game. Not only is it slightly faster than Hermes boots, but it allows you to glide at a constant speed, which is very useful for building very long platforms. When you defeat the Eye of Cthulhu in a Skyblock world, you actually get a demon altar. The reason why is because this is the only way you can progress and take on either the Eater of Worlds or the Brain of Cthulhu. Because the orbs don't spawn in a Skyblock world, you have to create your world's evil biome to farm for materials to craft the summon. Which is exactly what I did next. I then built a new house as I waited for the crimson to spread. I then invested in some organized storage, which you all should organize your storage. Never have a messy storage. Please. My crimson biome finally started to spawn crimson monsters. To make the summon, you need to craft vicious mushrooms into a type of powder. However, in order to do that, you need a bottle. Now, I had no idea how to get a bottle. I had not come across a sand or a glass slime. However, I noticed earlier you can craft a placeable healing potion for decoration. I figured that might work, and thankfully it did. So with summon in hand, I was ready to go, but the boss would not spawn. Notice how the background still looks like the overworld? Yeah, my biome was too small, and was not a true crimson biome, therefore I could not spawn the boss. So, I reluctantly spent more time placing dirt and stone. I'd finally placed enough, and it was now time to summon the boss. Again, there's nothing really difficult about this boss. Having a ton of fallen stars to make gesture arrows, which are piercing, allowed me to take care of the boss pretty easily. The Brain of Cthulhu actually drops dungeon bricks and cursed dungeon walls, so you can make your own artificial dungeon so you can challenge Skeletron. I was then able to craft myself a full set of crimson armor. As I was extending my platform over to where I wanted to build a dungeon, I experienced something I've never seen before. Usually when you see a meteor, it'll just be one giant one that hits the ground. But there's no ground. So how am I supposed to get the meteorite? Yep, instead of one giant meteor, it's a bunch of little tiny meteors in a meteor shower. Now, I don't know if this is Skyblock specific, but this is really cool. As the meteors hit the ground, or a solid block, they explode and have a chance to drop meteorite ore. With the meteorite, I was able to make my first magic weapon. I then spent some more time upgrading my base to fit more housing for more NPCs. I figured my next step was to try and summon a goblin army. In order to do that, I thought I'd have to go to the edges of the world and hope for a goblin scout to spawn and kill them so I can craft the summon. As I was doing that, can you guess what happened? A blood moon. That's what happened. I decided just to wait it out, and on my way back for... Are you kidding right now? So apparently it can spawn naturally, and whatever source I looked it up on the internet was wrong. This was mainly why I kept the design of the house the way it was. The catchers make the goblin army pretty easy. After defeating the army, I almost immediately found the goblin tinkerer. However, I got bombarded by enemies, and the goblin tinkerer actually fell, so I went down to chase after him, but with gravity being gravity, there was no way I could catch up to him. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to buy anything from him, so I just had to wait for him to come back. It didn't take long though, and I was finally able to get the Tinkerer's Workshop and the rocket boots. After spending a small fortune reforging my gear, I placed down some dungeon bricks so I can get the old man to spawn. I then went ahead and started working on my artificial dungeon. You know you got it working when you get 7 dungeon guardians coming after you. I then spent the afternoon building a small arena as I waited for nightfall to challenge Skeletron. I know many people say that Skeletron is easy, and he is easy in his first phase, but once you get those arms gone, for some reason I can never predict where those little tiny skeleton heads go. I'm only at the mercy of whatever potions I get from slimes, as I haven't found a way to get glass, or to make bottles, to make my own potions. Even if I did have bottles, I don't even have enough plants or anything to really make potions. And at this point, I don't even have any plant seeds at all. Just how the Brain of Cthulhu dropped a Crimson Altar, Skeletron drops a Hellforge. I ended up not going for the dungeon, because I figured the dungeon loot was kinda useless as I can skip straight to the underworld. And it's here why you can see the roller skates are so good. So I built myself a simple catcher, but I made one mistake. I made it out of wood. I don't know if it was recently changed, but I thought that the lava wouldn't affect the wood. Of course, lava destroys the wood, which makes perfectly logical sense. So I rebuilt it out of stone, and I started work on a lava collection system. I then learned how to duplicate water so I could get obsidian. However, my lava storage was overflowing, so I had to drain it, and this is where I made a fatal mistake. I had not brought any stone with me, and I figured the only safe block to patch it up with was hellstone. I then spent the next few hours farming the lava slimes to get the hellstone. However, in the 2 hours I was farming, I didn't even get a single piece of hellstone. It's like the lava slimes suddenly stopped dropping it. I tried many things to fix this. I emptied out my lava pool thinking maybe there's too much lava in my world. I even looked it up and people said lava slimes were dropping hellstone as usual, so I was really confused. It wasn't until I was looking at the good old Terraria wiki that I realized something important. Lava slimes don't actually drop the hellstone, hell slimes do. And according to the wiki, 1 in every 15 lava slimes is replaced by a hell slime. And this only happens if there is no hellstone placed in the world. Remember when I placed that hellstone? It's fine. It's fine. I only wasted 2 of my 40 hours. I decided I had enough frustration and decided to calm my nerves by building a nice little sky lake. By the way, the pickaxe I had was not strong enough to break the hellstone, and I was out of crimson bars, so I had to fight the brain again. I think this was recently added, but something cool is that you can actually see the fish in the water as you're fishing now. I was then able to upgrade my sword and my armor, and eventually my bow. After building a long bridge, it was time to finally take on the wall of flesh. Yeah, he came the wrong direction. So I ran all the way to the other side of my bridge and built a small little lava pool. However, the most infuriating thing was the lava slimes. Each time you'd kill them, the lava would break the platform. So every time I ran over to this side, more and more of my platform kept breaking. Today I learned that if you throw multiple guy voodoo dolls into lava, it kills multiple of your NPCs. However, there is still one small problem about my bridge. I built it too low. So the whole fight I had to shoot up almost blindly and listen for the sound cue so I know I'm hitting the eye. I was doing some decent damage with alternating between my bow and my demon sight, and of course I ran out of bridge space, so in a last ditch effort to kill the wall of flesh, I pulled out my sword and didn't make it. So I extended my bridge a bit more and tried again. Unfortunately, I used up all of my fallen stars and all of my jester arrows, so I decided to build a new platform higher up so I'd be better able to hit the eye. I may have underestimated just how important jester arrows really are. Without piercing, my arrows would just hit the hungries and I wasn't doing nearly as much damage as before. This led me to pulling out my sword again, and you can probably guess what happened next. At this point, I was so done with this boss. I just wanted him to get over with. It wasn't hard, I just needed those jester arrows, and I did not feel like spending a couple nights running around and collecting stars. With no luck, I decided, fine, I guess since I have to, I'll go gather some stars. With the combination of the jester arrows, my demon scythe, and the bridge that matches the eye level of the wall of flesh, it really made all the difference and made this fight pretty easy. With the with Wall of Flesh now defeated, it was time I plan out how I would go about hard mode. Something pretty interesting is that the pawn hammer is pretty redundant here. Smashing a demon altar with the pawn hammer just generates ore in your world, but you can actually just get all of the hard mode ores just through slimes. And I do mean all of the ores. After a few minutes of farming, I was lucky enough that I actually got a beam sword. And the wizard happened to show up as well. I figured the next logical step was to just keep farming ores until I get a full set of titanium or adamantite armor. Which is going to take a while because, as I said before, you get both types of ores. I then took a break from farming and purchased some hollow seeds from the dryad, as well as crafting myself a mithril anvil. I then started work on making a surface hollowed biome so I could start farming some berries to get enough pixie dust to make some wings, because you would not believe how many times I have fallen off my platforms. Apparently, it was time to fight the twins, which I was severely underprepared for. The only thing I had going for me was my Maro. I then built another house for an NPC, and the wizard immediately moved in. And I found out why a couple seconds later. Yeah, the Terraria housing market can be kinda crazy. The nice thing about NPCs coming for the day is that I was able to get some blue solution. I then made some housing in my hollowed biome because I figured I could get a pylon and teleport here. Forgetting the fact, of course, that a town limits spawn rates. I then realized I had enough titanium to make titanium armor, a welcome upgrade. I spent a long time getting a bunch of pixie dust, but finally I managed to get enough. I then got the souls of flight I needed, and was able to craft the fairy wings. For those who have not played Terraria before, getting wings is like getting your first car. To me, it's almost like that same freedom feeling. Also, with the way this playthrough is going, I had enough good accessories that I might as well play the ranger class. I then crafted a bunch of jester arrows to prepare to fight the twins. However, I forgot that the Maro turns any arrow into a bone arrow, so they were useless. Now, I don't play the ranger class all that often, and I'll admit it's been a while since I've actually played Terraria, so I wasn't expecting just how squishy this class really is. I figured coming back to the game with such a squishy class wasn't a very good idea, even if it is just expert mode. So I decided to switch to good old melee class. So I had to fight the wall to try and get the warrior emblem. Something I didn't realize though, is that you can actually shimmer these emblems, and they shimmer in a cycle, so you can go until you get the one you want. I then swapped some accessories out before heading over to the right of my world to try and find the shimmer. Now, I believe this is the only other island in Terraria Skyblock, the main one and the shimmer. Now, I'm not that familiar with the shimmer. I know it can like transmutate some stuff and like decraft stuff, but other than that, I'm not 100% sure. Because I switched classes, I needed a new titanium helmet, and I was hoping throwing adamantite into the shimmer would transmutate it into titanium. However, it mutated down instead. But eventually, I did realize I could just decraft the helmet I already had to make the new helmet. After I spent like 30 minutes farming, because I didn't realize. My next step was to get a good melee weapon. The only one I really have going for me right now is just the beam sword. So after looking at the wiki, I figured my best bet was either the banana ring or the shadow flame knife. The banana ring is dropped by clowns during a blood moon, while the shadow flame knife is dropped by goblin warlocks during a goblin army. So I spent the next couple days looking for goblin scouts, and the nights fighting the blood moon hoping for clowns to spawn. Now this took a long time, I'm talking like 3 days. For whatever reason, goblin scouts just did not want to spawn in my world. I saw one, maybe, in the 3 days I was looking for them. Luck had finally struck at the end of the 3rd night though. The blood moon had just ended, and I had to keep this clown in my sight in order to kill him, or else he'd despawn if he went off screen. Can you tell I was excited? My next step was to fight one of the mech bosses now that I finally had a decent weapon with decent range. So instead of wasting time like I've done so much this playthrough, like you wouldn't believe how much time that's just been wasted just sitting somewhere, farming somewhere. It's kind of crazy. I decided to start working on an underground jungle biome for when I'd need to fight Plantera, but I mainly had to wait for the jungle seeds to spread. So I built a garden, added some windows to my house, and finally the next night I could fight a boss. Now I've acquired quite a few summons, and the one I was most nervous about was actually the Destroyer, because there's no ground. And I wasn't sure how the Destroyer was going to behave with there being no ground. I didn't know if he was going to float, or if he was just going to sink to the bottom of the world and despawn. I wasn't sure, but I figured since I had 4 of the summons, I might as well just try and see what happens. Thankfully, he did float and acted pretty normal. Because he hung out below my platforms, when we got close to the end, I became nervous that the treasure bag would just fall to the bottom of the world and I wouldn't be able to collect it. But at the last second, his head popped through the ground and I was able to get it. At this point, I decided to fight the Destroyer a couple more times to get some more hollowed bars and upgrade to hollowed armor. And in between those nights, I learned that you can actually shimmer wood into dirt. What I'm saying is that I could have been doing this the whole time. You don't even know how many hours I wasted farming slimes just for dirt. So I crafted some of the dirt into mud and began working on a small arena for Plantera. Now, I think if Plantera is not in the jungle, she becomes enraged, which is something I wanted to avoid. But I'm not sure what counts as a jungle, or how many blocks need to be there, or what counts for that kind of thing. So I just built up some walls, put some more grass down, and crossing my fingers that it counts as a jungle. I mean, jungle enemies are starting to spawn. I'm just hoping that this works. I then learned that the developers actually did account for there being no ground. I just want to say that the jungle is always ruthless. Even though I had a mix of normal and jungle enemies, having just the jungle enemies there just made this area just completely devastating. I only needed to kill the Destroyer one more time to get enough bars. However, the game had other plans. I think switching to melee was the right call, because with the banana ring and the upgraded defense, this fight wasn't that bad at all. It got a little dicey towards the end, but other than that, it was pretty easy. And the range on the banana ring actually let me be far enough away from Spasmatism that I wasn't even affected by his fire. I then was able to upgrade my armor. I then built another house as I waited for night, and took on Skeletron Prime. With the extra hollowed bars I got from Skeletron, I decided it's finally time to upgrade my pickaxe. I went to my underground jungle and immediately saw the Plantera's bulb. Trying to build an arena in the underground jungle is not easy. I spent most of my time just trying to fight off enemies and still died. I then decided to build a couple houses in the underground jungle so I could try and get the jungle pylon. I then was curious, how would I get chlorophyte in this world? For those who don't know, chlorophyte is the next tier of ore. After all 3 mechanical bosses are destroyed, little pieces of the ore will spawn in the underground jungle. Unlike all the other ores in the game, chlorophyte ore is actually a kind of plant and will begin spreading and taking over mud blocks and turning them into chlorophyte ore. So I really only needed 1 piece of chlorophyte ore. In order for a new piece of chlorophyte ore to spawn, not the piece that spawns when it's growing, just a brand new piece, certain criteria must be met. First, it'll transform 1 random mud block into a chlorophyte ore, so long as that block is within an 11 by 11 tile rectangular area centered on that block. And if there's no tree, Plantaris bulb, or life fruit above it. And finally, if there's not too much chlorophyte nearby it already, which is not an issue for me. So I just built a giant mud block underneath my jungle. As I waited, I built a platform and found a skeleton merchant who sold something I've never seen before. It's an accessory that allows yo-yos to detach from the string after they're done being casted. It also could be combined with the yo-yo bag. This basically can allow your yo-yos to turn into a projectile weapon. Now I have a setting on my mouse that essentially allows for spam clicking, very useful for just random things. But if you combine that with this new yo-yo bag, you get this. This is what I like to call the yo-yo machine gun, because this is nuts. I then crafted an Avenger emblem, which boosted my damage to 102. So I took some potions and took on Plantera. I thought that with my new yo-yo machine gun tech, that Plantera would be pretty easy, not a hard fight. However, I was wrong. I forgot just how long it's been since I played this game. Have you noticed how the yo-yos aren't firing as fast? Yeah, that's an issue I'll talk about later. It's also not very easy to aim with the yo-yos either. And they'd also get stuck rolling on the platform, which meant if I was above the platform and Plantera was below it, I'd be doing no damage. I didn't even get her to second phase. I decided to remove large portions of my platform. The problem with the yo-yo is that you either have to hold still or be moving in the same direction as you are firing to get the rapid fire to work. If you are moving away, then the yo-yo actually has time to extend a little bit, which delays the rapid firing. I then planted some dayblooms before building an even bigger mud block, hoping it'll increase my chances of getting a chlorophyte ore to spawn. As I waited for the chlorophyte to spawn, I decided to make my platforms connecting my cloud islands invisible, because I never really liked the way they looked. I then noticed a Plantaris bulb spawned in, so I grabbed some potions and gave it another try. This time, I actually managed to get her to second phase. However, I forgot just how many enemies she spawns around her. And I also forgot just how important a cobalt shield would be for this fight. Not long after, I discovered that my first piece of chlorophyte ore spawned in. As I waited, I decided to go fishing in the jungle, hoping to get some feral claws. I did manage to get a jungle crate. However, I only got an anklet of wind, which isn't that bad. After waiting a while, I harvested a little bit of chlorophyte and planted 2 more pieces. In case you're wondering if the yo-yo machine gun is actually good, look at how much damage this is doing. As I was harvesting more chlorophyte, a solar eclipse began. And let me just say, these catchers were the best decision I ever made. By the time the eclipse was over, I basically had gotten everything I could from it. After upgrading my wings, I realized that my storage was overflowing, so I decided to build a dedicated island just for storage and crafting. After I had finished moving all my stuff over, I decided I'd try playing Terra one more time since I was almost at 100 days. I ended up using the yo-yo normally most of the time. I figured I'd be doing more damage since I didn't have to aim as well, and I'm moving backwards most of the time anyway, so the machine gun aspect isn't really working. I did pretty good that time. However, not having full life fruit or chlorophyte armor or a cobalt shield makes this fight just a little too hard for me. By the way, all of those things I just mentioned requires waiting. I have to wait for the life fruit to grow, I have to wait for the chlorophyte to grow, I'd have to fish in the dungeon and hope I get a locked chest and open it and hope I get a cobalt shield and not something else. So I ended up building a fishing pond in the dungeon, hoping to get a locked chest while the life fruit and the chlorophyte grow. I didn't catch a single golden crate or whatever it's called. I don't even know if this technically counts as a dungeon fishing spot. If you guys know if this counts or not, let me know. But I did see alchemy tables floating about in there, so I figured it was fine. Maybe I was just unlucky. With the last few minutes remaining, I built a special message, which I'll show you in a second, and discovered with all that waiting, I only ended up with 28 chlorophyte bars. Enough for one piece of armor. Since I figured waiting for chlorophyte is going to take a long time, I expanded my hollow biome, so maybe next time we can take on the Empress of Light. Something I never properly done before. I then took one final look at my base before saying goodbye for now. Like I said before, it's been a while since I've actually played this game, and something I wanted to do during next time is I want to do the Empress of Light, which I haven't properly done before, but I think I can do that in Skyblock. I've also never beaten the Moon Lord before. I've played this game all throughout my childhood. I've done a lot, but I've never actually beaten the Moon Lord solo or anything. So I think that'd be really cool, like a really good goal for next time. I also got through quite a bit of the game. I'm past hard mode, like almost done with Plantera, which means there's not really that much left for part 2 if I do 200 days. So if you guys have any idea on what I can use to fill up some time if I need, do let me know, because although I'm gonna have to do a lot of farming, I feel like there might be some extra time. That being said, if you do want a part 2, 200 days, let me know by leaving a like. I'd really appreciate it. This is my first like super long form, like do everything in one video, which was really fun to make. And if you'd like to see more like this, then do let me know that as well. And if you're still watching at this point, thank you. I appreciate it. I am a super small content creator right now. I hope to do more in the future, but life has just been pretty busy. But yeah, I appreciate it if you made it this far. Anyways, that's it for now. Take care, guys.